Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Four podcast. We've had an eventful first weekend, so...
No.
Following the Texas Tech sweep of Michigan. So we'll get into the basketball games. We'll start with Michigan State. They're embarrassed by Bradley, and then they beat Minnesota. What's your reaction to their first couple games in advancing to the Sweet 16?
Well, Bradley's a Final Four caliber team. I think you saw him play, and I'm dead serious. The way they play defense, they were the greatest 15 seed I've ever seen since Middle Tennessee State. They're up there, just amazing. You know, the performance that Bradley put up. They've got an NBA level coach. Really coached them up. Got some good talent. They were making shots. That was impressive. What?
They survive in advance. That's what this tournament's about. Just survive in advance. That's what Michigan State did. And
Nope.
Have a great.
Nope, you're wrong. That was a slugfest. That was a battle. That was a war between two teams. And, you know, we got lucky to win that one. But the two evenly matched teams. Minnesota, we took advantage of Richard Pitino again. He's a terrible coach. And took advantage of that. And, you know.
Survive in advance. That's what this tournament's about. And Michigan State's still alive. That's all that matters.
You know, when you play a Final Four team in the first round, it's kind of unfortunate. But, you know, we survived, and we're moving on.
You know, Bradley, quality team.
And
Minnesota, you complain all the time about Michigan last year playing nobody. Minnesota was one of the worst teams in the tournament.
Okay, you played an 11 seed in the Final Four. Okay, can we calm down?
Okay, terrible win against Bradley. Michigan State should have been qualified for the tournament after that win.
Well, at least Bradley knows how to play basketball, unlike Montana.
Montana's much better than Bradley.
It's like Montana was playing a different sport. What do they play in the Big Sky? I don't even know.
Great win against Minnesota. They fish and like hunt. That's all they can do.
There's a reason why Montana State is out recruiting Montana. There's a reason why.
Great win against Minnesota against the great coach Richard Pitino, who led his team. It was a pretty good year this year. So yeah. Terrible.
Props to Jordan Murphy. Great career. You know, unfortunately, he couldn't really play much, but you know, that's what happens. Richard Pitino was the guy who made that decision. You got to play him until he can't play anymore. I mean, that's stupid. Why are you not running your kids into the ground? It's that time of the year. Stupid decision by him. You got to play Jordan Murphy, who has no chance at the next levels. This is definitely his last basketball game. You got to run him into the ground. It's unbelievable. Terrible coaching move.
Awful. All right, let's move on to Michigan. They grabbed two impressive wins over Minnesota and Florida. What's your reaction to Michigan advancing to the Sweet 16 for the third straight year?
Well,
didn't beat Minnesota, so.
I know Michigan got the luxury of not playing a Big Ten team in the second round, first of all. They did play a good team, but I don't know what the hell Mike White was doing. I've been praising him all year, but it seems like nobody wants to do what Michigan State's doing and switch on every screen, make Michigan go one-on-one. I expect Texas Tech will do that. They do that every time. But I don't know what the hell Florida was doing. Their zone was pretty good. Michigan struggles against the zone. But they should have either stuck with that all game or switched it up a little bit. I thought it was a bad matchup for Florida from the start. You know, they struggle to make shots. I've watched them a lot. They're kind of my adopted, fourth team that I root for. And I was kind of upset that it wasn't Nevada because I actually believe, and I still believe, that Nevada would have blew out Michigan if they played them.
We'll be getting to Nevada pretty soon. I had to include them in here.
Anyway, I think if Nevada beat Florida, Michigan would be in big trouble. But they got lucky. They played a team that they match up well against, and they took care of business. I'll give them credit for that because they're not a good basketball team, Michigan, and they're playing the best basketball of the year. I just don't think they can get any higher, though. That's the thing.
Florida was a joke. They played so bad. They weren't very good, but I didn't think Michigan played well. Michigan did play well in the Florida game. I don't think they played well at all against Montana. Montana had wide open shots. They're just not good. They didn't understand the ball was supposed to go in the hoop. But survive and advance is the name of the tournament, and Michigan's still alive, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, the key word is still, because they won't be alive by tomorrow.
Yeah, Montana looked like a D3 team out there. And Florida is terrible. I don't know how they beat Nevada, but... Well, Nevada sucks, that's why.
They beat Nevada because Nevada got screwed by the refs at the end.
That's also true. It's so ridiculous. We'll be getting to Nevada in a couple slides, but I wasn't really impressed with their performance against Montana. I thought they were mailing it in. Montana, they had a tough game. They didn't really play very well.
They shot under 20% from the game in the fucking game. Unbelievable. I think Bradley shot over 50% from three. That kind of seemed like another Indiana game, but they cooled down in the second half. Bradley knows how to play basketball because they're actually in a decent conference. Same conference of Loyola Chicago, and they beat them. And Loyola Chicago is a very good basketball team. So,
Yeah, they should have been an at-large 15 seed.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
So whatever, a win's a win. Florida, I thought Michigan played really well against Florida. Florida shot 100% in the field in the first half. I've never seen that from any team, but they shot the ball. They didn't win in the first half. That's a fact.
Well, Michigan did that 3 times against Michigan State this year.
The second half, Florida couldn't throw the ball in the ocean, so it evened out, and I thought Michigan played really well on both sides of the ball. So good win there, and I'm excited to see what this team has in store going forward.
Yeah, this will be the first game of the tournament that the coaching advantage does not go to Michigan, so we'll see what happens.
That is absurd. Okay. All right, Ohio State knocked out of the tournament in the round of 32 by Houston. They did beat Iowa State in the first round. What's your reaction to Ohio State season coming to an end?
This was a great season by Chris Holtmann. Nobody expected him to go anywhere. They had some okay players, but when you get a transfer from Wake Forest, what are you expecting from him? What are you expecting from these young freshmen they have, like Luther Muhammad, who played pretty well, Dwayne Washington, what were you expecting from those guys? You weren't really expecting much. But of course, Daddy is one of the best players in the Big Ten, and he showed it again in the first round of the tournament. Iowa State, one of the biggest choking programs in the nation, where they struggled, and Ohio State took care of business. I think Ohio State was a better team anyway. And really, it shows. I mean, teams that win their conference tournament, they lose. They struggle in the first round. Iowa State won the conference tournament, and wouldn't you know it, they lost in the first round. So, the teams that go out early tend to have no problem in the first day of the tournament. So, just shows the conference tournament doesn't mean crap. That's all that showed. And then the Houston game, I thought they were probably better than Houston. They just didn't shoot the ball well. I don't know how Houston keeps winning, but all I know is those wins will be vacated in a couple years once Calvin Sampson gets in his 100th scandal. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
I thought, us beating Iowa State shows that we would have won the Big 12, and we were just in the wrong conference. But overall, I thought we had a pretty good season this year. We were picked in the bottom half of the Big Ten again. This team, I've said it before, I'll say it again, this team was put together with duct tape and super glue by Chris Holtmann. You had a JUCO transfer from 2 years ago with C.J. Jackson as your point guard, and your top scorer, Keyshawn Woods, was a transfer from graduate transfer from Wake. And you had 4 or 5 freshmen who played lots of important minutes, plus a sophomore and Kyle Young who played important minutes. And young and Caleb Weston. And they think next year is going to be a season where you start to think if Chris Holtman is going in the right direction with this program, or if it was more Thad Matta's guys. And but I think Chris Holtman will start to show how great of a coach he is next year once he starting to get his his second real recruiting class in here. Hey Luke, yeah, you said Ohio State was finished in the bottom half of the Big Ten. They finished in the bottom half of the Big Ten. No, they're projected to finish in the bottom half, but yes, but no one predicted them to make the tournament, is what I was trying to say. Okay.
Rumor has it that Tim Miles might be replacing Chris Holtman. Is this true?
I would take Tim Miles. Tim Miles is the best coach in the Big Ten. Or was, I guess. Was the best coach.
There better be a slide about Tim Miles because I'm very upset. Very upset about Tim Miles. Well, we got to talk about that.
All the coaching news at the end of the tournament.
No, I'm very upset about Chris Holtman. About Tim Miles. Very upset. I've got a vent. He got screwed.
Go ahead.
Got screwed. Guess how many wins in the history of Nebraska basketball? How many tournament wins do they have? Take a wild guess.
2.
Nope, 0. Northwestern has a win. They have 0 NCAA tournament wins in their entire history. And now they're going to fire a coach because they didn't make the tournament? Are you kidding me? That's like Maine firing a coach for finishing like 5th in the America East. They're the Rutgers. If Rutgers is Big Ten football's doormat, Nebraska has been Big 12 basketball and Big Ten basketball's doormat. And Tim Miles brings them to relevancy, and now he's gone? That's ridiculous. He got absolutely screwed. The next guy they bring in is not going to be better than him. It's absurd. It pisses me off.
On that team, he didn't bring him anywhere.
Yeah, well, guess what? Making the tournament once is equivalent to making a Final Four in any other program. And he made the tournament.
Okay, Alex, what do you think about Ohio State? I thought it was a successful season for them. Like Luke said, they were projected to do absolutely nothing. And they came in and beat the Big 12 conference or tournament champions, who I had in my Final Four. So that really was upsetting. But, I thought it was a very successful season. They played Houston pretty tough, especially in the first half. But, they really didn't have anybody. And, Chris Holtman always manages to win a game in the tournament. So I was impressed. And who knows if they'd Caleb Weston for a couple more games. Who knows what could have happened.
Listen, Chris Holtman's one of the greatest coaches of all time because he beat Middle Tennessee in the second round. Just great coach. Guided a Butler program that had no history to a couple tournaments. He's just done an unbelievable job.
Really? No history at Butler?
Nope.
Okay. I thought Ohio State this year, overall, they achieved. I think they underachieved or overachieved.
Okay.
They went 8-12 in the Big Ten, so let's relax. It's not like they had a great season. 9-12. They have no talent on that team. Well, they have Wesson.
They have Daddy.
Talking about the games, I was really impressed with the win over Iowa State, but as Mike said, Iowa State is one of the biggest choking programs out there.
Yeah, Michigan's up there too, so.
I can't get over this loss to Houston, though. How do you lose to Houston? What a terrible loss. Because they're 3 seed and they're good.
Because Kelvin Sampson's paying off the refs.
It's a terrible loss there, but, the future's looking bright for Ohio State, I think.
Yeah, definitely brighter than Michigan.
Okay.
Better coach, better program, and Ohio State's more of a basketball school than Michigan is, so.
Okay, moving on to Alex's team now. The first 4 out should have been the first 4 out in the CIT. Nevada booted in the first round by Florida. What's your reaction to this absolutely embarrassing loss by Nevada? Which I was all over
Last time I checked, this wasn't the Mountain West Conference podcast, so I have no comment on this.
No, we represent each of the people, each of us.
I'm sorry, this is a Big Ten.
This is Alex's favorite team.
This is a Big Ten podcast. I have no comment on this.
Okay. Nevada got screwed by the refs. Give me a break.
Wait, I have one thing to say. I agree with Luke.
The NCAA doesn't want to see a non-Power 5 team win the championship, so they made sure Nevada got knocked out as early as possible.
I completely agree.
Where no one's watching, so no one can pick up on when they get screwed. The more they move on in the tournament, the more people are going to be watching the game. So I knocked them down.
I completely agree.
What's so funny? It's true. They got absolutely screwed.
You and Luke are just riling up Alex.
Every call went Florida's way down the stretch. Nevada tied the game with like 4 minutes to go, and every single call went Florida's way.
That is just a false statement. Why? You're just blatantly
Power 5
lying.
bias.
Blatantly
It's
lying.
atrocious. It is atrocious.
Give me a break. Chris, I guarantee you didn't even watch the game. I watched the whole game, and I had my Florida Gators gear on during the game. I was wearing my Gatorhead mask. Let's remove Michigan from this podcast because now you're a Florida fan. I was a
Confirmed.
fan during that game.
Confirmed.
Listen, he just understands Florida's Michigan's daddy, and he has to dress up like them.
This was absolute daddy. That's Urban Meyer coached. As I've been saying, Nevada should not have made any postseason tournament. They didn't play anybody good this year. They beat no good teams.
Well, guess what?
Terrible losses.
Michigan. No.
What are you talking about?
Listen, Michigan didn't win their conference tournament. They shouldn't have made the tournament because they didn't win their conference tournament because that's all that matters, right? Michigan should not have made the tournament.
If Nevada had won that game, I would have taken them over Michigan.
Yeah, I know, because you're a Nevada fan.
No, I'm just a realistic fan.
Okay. Terrible loss for Nevada. They're not a good team. We know this. They're a really bad basketball team. They showed it.
I don't know why you're so obsessed with Nevada, Chris. I don't understand it.
I don't understand how a team is a 7th seed when you beat 0 good teams this season.
They were
have 25 plus wins. I mean,
it doesn't matter. They beat nobody good.
They beat Arizona State.
Arizona State is not good. Michigan didn't beat anybody good either. Really?
Who did Michigan beat? A Villanova team that lost by 30 to frickin' Purdue? Are you kidding me? Give me a break. North Carolina sucks.
They're a 1 seed.
They're the worst 1 seed. I think we all agree on that.
Virginia is the worst 1 seed.
That is terrible. We better be talking about Virginia later in this.
We will be talking about Virginia in a couple slides.
I do have them winning my national championship.
Okay. We'll be reviewing that.
They are in my national championship game.
We're revealing this stuff later. Let's calm down.
How about you calm down putting Nevada on a Big 4 podcast? How about that?
No, I have to represent Alex's favorite team. I wanted to make sure Alex his team was included in it.
We don't have to cater to everybody. Jesus Christ.
Nope, you do. Chris, in that case, we have to talk about Florida now since you're a Florida fan, apparently. Well, we already talked about Florida because we had Michigan. We had the Michigan slide. Okay.
Now we got to talk about. Now we got to talk about Marquette because that's your favorite team. Come on.
No.
Where's the Marquette slide? Where's the Marquette slide?
They're in the next slide later. We'll talk.
How come I just don't believe you? I just don't believe you.
All right, so I'm just going to go through the schedule here because you guys keep asking. We have the conference scoreboard. First, we have the first weekend storylines, and then we're revealing our bracket.
Bull
Didn't we do
crap.
that last week?
Yeah, I know, but with teams knocked out and everything, we got to see if anything changed. Okay. Especially in my bracket where I have like 3 of my Elite 8 left.
Oh, good. Oh, good at you.
Games back.
Okay. All right, conference scoreboard.
Is Marquette in your Elite 8?
Okay. We don't need to talk about that right now.
John Morant just owns Marcus Howard.
Yeah, we will be.
That was That was embarrassing.
Minnesota defeats Louisville, Maryland over Belmont, Purdue over Old Dominion, Iowa over Cincinnati, Oregon over Wisconsin, LSU over Maryland, Purdue over Villanova, and Tennessee over Iowa in overtime. Well, any reaction to these games?
Embarrassing for Tennessee. How do you let Iowa come back from 25 points down?
Well, as Luke said, survive in advance. Nope,
Well,
not
you're a Tennessee fan, so we should include them as well.
choke in advance. Not survive in advance, choke in advance through Tennessee.
Yeah. If Purdue shoots like they did against Villanova, Purdue is going to win that game by 30.
Yeah, Purdue, when Purdue's hot, they're nasty. Unlike any other team, they can put a 15 on you in like 30 seconds. That's how they did it against us.
I do remember that. Talk about Minnesota.
I turned on the game 2 minutes late. It's 18 minutes left, and we're already down 14-2.
Listen, Purdue is unbeatable at home. I think we can all agree on that. And
Years ago.
anyways, yeah, well, that's different. 2 years ago, they weren't as good as a team as they were this year. Similar to Michigan State. They lost talent and got better. Minnesota, good win over Louisville. Chris Mack choking again. It seems like
That was awful.
it depends on the year for Chris Mack. You either makes an Elite Eight with an 11 seed or chokes with like a 1 seed like he did last year. But I think Louisville is in a good spot. Pretty good win for Minnesota. What?
They were like Ohio State. They were better than predicted with all the scandals and stuff.
Who?
I mean, Louisville, they weren't supposed to be as good as they were.
Whatever. Who the hell gives a shit? Anyway.
I'm very upset about the Belmont game as well.
Yeah, listen. Any other Mark Turgeon-led team that lost that game, I got to give him a little bit of credit. Belmont had the clear coaching advantage. One of the best coaches in the country in Rick Byrd. Had his team ready. And,
He is terrible.
what?
This guy calls timeout after the first free throw. Are you kidding me? After the first free throw with 2 seconds left.
And he wanted to talk to Steve.
You talk to your team after the second free
He
throw.
was icing the free throw.
Guess what?
Set up a flag.
He
He wants to make sure his team knows what he's doing if they make it or if they miss it, Chris. He doesn't want his team
Well, that's good coaching.
How about you call timeout anyways after? Just call timeout after.
I'm sorry.
Good coaching.
I'm sorry. He's been coaching there for like 70 years. So,
He's a terrible coach. Terrible coach.
Well, John Beilein had the entire second half to figure out Michigan State, and he couldn't do it. So, I don't know what you're talking about. You can't really say anything. No, good win for Maryland, though. They were clutch down the stretch. I think Maryland's got a pretty bright future, except for their coach. I think he's always going to hold them down from doing really anything. Purdue, you thought maybe Old Dominion, Carter Blackburn on the call. He called that Old Dominion Virginia Tech game. Maybe the magic would still be there, but no. Purdue took care of business. Credit to them.
Did you pick Old Dominion, Chris?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was a lot, and it wasn't even close. It got to 13, but they were up like 20 with 2 minutes to go. It really wasn't even close. Surprising win for Iowa, but Mick Cronin hasn't made it out of the second round in like 10 years, so you kind of expected that.
I was slandered on this podcast picking Iowa to beat Cincinnati last week. So.
Well, it was the battle of two choke coaches. They were trying to, they were trying their hardest to choke themselves. Anyways, Oregon.
Mick Cronin is terrible.
Yeah, he is awful.
No, he's one of the greatest regular season coaches of all time. He's up there.
Same with Tony Bennett.
He would fit perfectly in the Big East. Let's just say that. Fit absolutely
That's
perfect.
true.
Oregon was just a better team. Wisconsin, I think Coach Gard needs to go. He hasn't been able to recruit anybody. Nobody in that team could shoot. Ethan Happ really does everything. And, Oregon was just a better team. They have better athletes. And they have probably a top 10 coach in the country in Altman. Been to a Final Four. Beat Michigan on the way. So, LSU, I was kind of pissed off with that game. Maryland came back. I think LSU's got problems, to be honest with you. Without their head coach, Maryland made one simple adjustment, and they couldn't do anything about it. And, of course, the Mark Turgeon team couldn't finish. Nobody's really shocked about that. Purdue, I was shocked that they beat Villanova, but, when Carson Edwards gets hot, you're not beating Purdue. Nobody's beating Purdue when he's shooting over 50% from the field. The problem is he could have another 7 for 31 game like he did against Minnesota a couple weeks ago. That's the problem. And Tennessee, they just suck. No idea what happened. Their best player was sulking on the bench in overtime. That's how big of a choker he was. They had to sit him on the bench in overtime.
He told Rick Barnes that the other guy was having a great game.
No, he told Rick Barnes he was choking too bad to go back in the game. How embarrassing is that? That is the most embarrassing thing. If I'm a star player for my team and my coach doesn't put me in for overtime, I would be, that is just, it's embarrassing. And, Iowa's not a good team, so of course Tennessee won the game. But that was just, oh my goodness, how embarrassing do you have to get to blow a 26-point lead? That is just, that is preposterous. That is absolutely preposterous. Rick Barnes needs to be fired in between these next two games.
Oh, yeah, the coach of the year needs to be fired. Okay.
Well, remember, what's his name? From the Raptors got fired. Casey.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
He needs to go. He needs to be fired.
Okay. Minnesota, not surprising. Louisville is struggling the second half of the season, and I don't know how Michigan State lost to them.
We lost them because McQuaid was out, and he's our second most important player.
Nope. Maryland over Belmont, whatever.
That was blasphemous.
Whatever. Iowa over Cincinnati. Mark Turgeon right now is the best coach in the Big Ten. Oh yeah.
Well, unfortunately for him, his nose is bigger than his brain, so that's the unfortunate part for Mark Turgeon.
Well, that's why he's such a good coach. He keeps everything simple. He doesn't try to complicate it. He's a great coach. He did a great job in this tournament. He had an impossible task against LSU, saying that players are getting paid an actual salary at LSU.
True.
The NBA LSU Tigers.
Iowa, great win over Cincinnati. Wisconsin ran into a buzzsaw with Oregon. Maryland ran into a hot LSU team. But Mark Turgeon did a great job in this game. They're playing NBA players. I was a little surprised that Purdue even beat Villanova. They destroyed them. And Carson Edwards showed up for a big game. Wow.
It's not a big game. Villanova's not a good basketball team. It's not a big game.
Okay. Tennessee, Tennessee, what a win for Tennessee. What a great win for Tennessee.
Okay, we're moving on.
Beating a great Iowa team. Iowa, I know they can score in a hurry. Brad McCaffrey's a great coach. Great win for Tennessee. Okay. So I'm going to just run through some of the storylines that I thought of from the first weekend. You guys can talk about whatever you want from the first weekend, but here are a couple things. All the 1, 2, and 3 seeds still alive. Big Ten
What?
has been dominant. Oregon might be the Cinderella.
No.
John McNett versus Marquette was a big thing.
No.
Taco Fall versus Zion was a big storyline. Oh, talk about getting screwed. Oh, UCF got screwed by the refs. Unbelievable. I have a couple more you can talk about that. But Virginia didn't choke, surprisingly, and there will be a new national champion with Villanova going down. Yeah, well, Villanova's trash. I'm vacating their national championship from last year. I have the top, just like the NCAA vacated every Michigan win from the 1990s. And UCF got screwed by the refs. I don't know how, but they definitely did. And, because Zion absolutely ran the guy over. I thought I was watching an NFL game. Even in the NFL, they were throwing a flag for excessive contact on that one. And it was unbelievable. Feel bad for my boy Taco Falls. Who else got screwed? Nevada still got screwed. They Tennessee, horrible team. I don't know how they're still in. They're going to lose. Who are they playing? Purdue?
That's a loss. Purdue's
Yeah,
better coach team, better players overall. Not even close.
Purdue's a choking program.
No,
talk about a cooking program, Tennessee.
Okay, fair enough.
And so that's and Houston's still alive, and they're definitely just going to win the tournament. And prove that the Americans better than the Big East.
Yep. Every Big East team is done, including the NIT. Just a terrible season for the Big East.
Creighton had a great run in the NIT.
Yeah, well, they got absolutely stomped by the Big 12's like 8th best team. That's embarrassing. I don't know how the ACC has impressed. You got to explain that to me. Syracuse with an embarrassing loss to a Baylor team that's been down its best player the entire year.
Sweet 16.
So you're telling me that the ACC is impressed when Louisville laid an absolute egg against Minnesota. That's a joke. The Big Ten has impressed. The Big East has been one of the biggest embarrassments of any conference in the history of college basketball. This is almost as bad as 2014 when the SEC got 2 teams in the tournament. One of them was a number 1 seed, the other was a play-in 11 seed. Just embarrassing. That conference is terrible. Marquette, don't get me started with Marquette. They are the worst basketball team in the country, and don't at me. They are terrible. They got a bunch of white guys, unathletic white guys who shoot a little bit, play no defense. Marcus Howard doesn't do crap. He got exposed. Everybody's been talking about him being great. He shouldn't even be on the all-conference team, any all-conference team, let alone all-American. That is absolutely absurd. And Taco Fall is probably the best player in the country. You saw the plus-minus when he was in the game against Duke, and it was shocking. And I think you saw the blueprint, how to beat Duke. You gotta have a good shot blocker down there. So Duke's afraid to go into the paint, and you gotta let him shoot threes. So I think everybody's got the blueprint to beat Duke. UVA, of course, they didn't choke. If you actually thought UVA was going to choke, you're dumb. They're much better this year.
They do it every year.
I think they might go back-to-back this year and next year, national champions. We'll see. And that would definitely quell all the haters saying that UVA chokes every year. Well, I'll be rooting for them to win the national championship if Michigan State loses early. So I'll just say that right now. Might as well put a Virginia logo on the Big Four podcast.
Chokes every year. Rick Barnes chokes every year.
Well, they don't really make the tournament every year, so.
Yeah, going back to his days at Texas, he's been a choker every year.
Has been to the tournament 24 times. Take a guess how many times he's been past the first weekend.
3.
6 times. Less than a fourth. And he's been with Texas and Tennessee. 2 huge programs. And he can't get past. He lost in the round of 64.
All right.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. Half the time he's gone to the tournament, he's lost in the round of 64. What a horrible coach.
Listen, he's the antithesis of a choking coach. Nobody even comes close.
Okay. So I'll start with Marquette.
Oh, your favorite team.
Well, I was wrong about Marquette. I admitted that a couple weeks ago, and that I was completely off. I think there's a lot of talent on that team. They weren't playing well. I think Wojo needs to be fired. Way too much talent to lose in the first round.
Oh, and if Tim Miles goes to Marquette, I'm picking him to win the national championship next year.
Okay. John Morant was incredible. It was fun to watch. Didn't you say he was overrated? Yeah, I changed my mind.
He is overrated. Cassius Winston's better.
No.
Yes, he is.
Virginia not choking. This is the biggest shocker of the weekend. They didn't lose, but whatever. Give them credit.
The biggest shocker was Michigan getting out of the first round.
But I'm really passionate about this one. talk this UCF Duke game. Really did look like the fix was in for Duke. That was ridiculous. That last play of the game, offensive foul on Zion. Taco Fall did not foul Zion at the hoop. There was a lane violation on RJ Barrett, and then he pushed off. So 4 calls they missed, which is ridiculous. The UCF should be playing right now, an overrated Duke should not be playing.
And
Duke is not confused, and that's all they want.
And Duke overinflated the basketball, so when the ball hit the rim, it didn't bounce in because it was overinflated.
That's right. Okay. Well, let's get it. Anybody else have anything to say?
Marquette sucks.
John Beeline needs to be fired. He's done a terrible job this year.
We still have more to do, but anything else?
Oh, by the way, if Tim Miles goes to Michigan, I'm picking them to win the national championship next year.
Okay.
I will give up being a Michigan State fan if he goes to Michigan. I will become a Michigan fan.
It's time for some Big Four bracket fun.
No.
All right, who will advance to the Elite Eight?
Well, I don't even have my bracket out in front of me, so I'm going to take a stab at these games. East region, I think Duke will beat Virginia Tech. With that guy getting caught for weed, I mean, what a shocker. I think Duke planted that just so that, or maybe the NCAA planted it so that they wanted Duke to move on. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I like Michigan State to beat LSU. I think LSU doesn't play defense sometimes, and that'll really hurt them. Naz Reid, a 35-year-old freshman, it'll be crucial to contain him. And if they do, I think they got a good chance. Of course, Cassius Winston's going to have to show up a little bit more than he did the first couple games of the tournament, although he did put up 28 against a Final Four team. No, you guys just do the East region. Who you guys have in the East region?
Duke or Michigan State? That's who I had second at the beginning of the tournament. That's who I'm sticking with.
Yep. Virginia Tech is just awful. So,
well, they can't be that bad. They made it to the Sweet 16, so.
Well, they played St. Louis, who's terrible. And
How about St. Louis? Oh, what a tournament for St. Louis.
And they played a 12-seeded Liberty. So, yes, I would. And they beat St. Louis by 14, and they beat Liberty by 9.
Survive in advance, Alex. Survive in advance. You can't choose who you play. You just have to play who's in front of you.
And LSU's going to run out of gas, and Michigan State's on a roll right now.
I originally had Duke and Michigan State. I'm going to stick with Michigan State because of, I just think they're a better team than LSU. LSU's good. It's going to be a close game, but we'll see. But after watching Duke's embarrassing performance against UCF, I'm going Virginia Tech in a blowout. Last time they beat them and they didn't have their best player. Virginia Tech did not have the best player. And he's back now. And they're going to destroy Duke because Duke can't shoot and they're not very good.
Yeah, well,
wins by 1 and then they win by 50. So
yeah.
I'm expecting a 50-point blowout.
Well, Buzz Williams will find a way to mess it up. He always does.
No, Buzz Williams is a great coach.
That's why he's been out of the first round once. And this is the only year he's been out of the first round.
He's a great coach.
They choke almost as much as Virginia does. Virginia Tech.
Nope. Okay. West region.
Yeah, I think this will be Gonzaga's hardest game, to be honest with you. I think Florida State's one of the hottest teams in the tournament right now. I still got Gonzaga winning, but I feel like that game can go either way. I'm going to take Gonzaga. I really like Texas Tech over Michigan. I just think Texas Tech's defense will shut Michigan down, and once Michigan struggles on the offensive end, it really affects the other end, and I think Texas Tech, just the way they blew out Buffalo was really impressive, so I'm going to take Texas Tech versus Gonzaga.
Well, I really like Gonzaga, but I'm going to take Florida State to win because it just seems like this year Florida State has can't do anything wrong. They try to do something wrong. It turns out being right. That game against Virginia Tech they tried to lose and they still won. And I'm going to take Texas Tech over Michigan. They just played each other in a 3-game set, 4-game set in baseball. And Texas Tech shot them. And that was a preview of this game here. The baseball series, Texas Tech was blown up by 30, maybe even 35 points. Most embarrassing loss in Michigan history. And they better hope it gets vacated because they never want to see that showed up because it's going to be the worst loss, most embarrassing game Michigan's ever played.
Got him.
I'm going to take Florida State because they have the length. I think they're going to disrupt Gonzaga's transition game. And the Michigan, I'm going to take Michigan, but it's going to be like 30 to 25. It's just going to be an ugly, ugly game.
And remember, Texas Tech has the coaching advantage, so
No. I'm going with Florida State because I don't like Gonzaga.
Well, great reasoning.
Shocker, because you're a biased picker. You don't like anybody that doesn't come out of the Big East or a Power 5 conference. Correct. I would say Power 6, but I will say Power 6. I'll include the American. Okay. The Big East is not a Power 6 conference anymore. And I'm going with Michigan. That's stupid. You know, I don't know. This is up there for me. I'd like to say no comment on this game, but I have no idea who's going to win. And first one to break 65 is going to win the game. We'll see.
well, we'll see. We'll see if another John Beilein team melts down in a big game like they did against Michigan State 3 times.
Okay. The South region.
Is that the region with Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay. This one scares me. If I'm a Virginia fan, this one really scares me. This Oregon game. This really could go either way. Wisconsin is a very similar team to Oregon. Of course, they're not as good, but they play very similar, and Oregon just absolutely picked them apart. I would not be surprised if Oregon won this game by 10-plus points. I'm still going to roll with Virginia, but I'm a little worried about this pick because I really like Oregon a lot. And I'm going to take Purdue over Tennessee. I think Purdue's just playing hot right now. Tennessee played the what was that, the 6th best Big Ten team, and didn't even come close. They really were awful in that game. Blew a big lead. Now they're playing a team that tied for first in the Big Ten, and I don't think they're not going to win that game. No way. Purdue's going to win by 10-plus points.
I'm taking Virginia and Purdue simply because Tennessee sucks, and I think this is Virginia's year. They're going to win their championship.
Let's go. I agree with both of those picks. Oregon, not sold. They started really slow against UC Irvine. And I think if Purdue doesn't show up and put out a dud, I think they should be fine. So,
Here in Michigan, they'll still be Tennessee.
That's true.
All right. I'm going to go with the Virginia game. I'm going to go with Oregon because Virginia's going to choke.
Oh, wow. I could have never have told you that he was going to pick Oregon.
If you make the Sweet 16, it's kind of hard to choke. You got out of the first two games. It's kind of hard to choke.
If you lose to a 12 seed, then you're choking. So.
No, is this 2018?
What?
Is this 2018?
No, it's 2019.
Okay, so why are you talking about something that happened in 2018?
They're playing a 12 seed. This round.
It's 12-16?
What?
Yes.
They're playing a 12 seed in this round. Oregon is a 12 seed.
Oh my freaking God!
About them losing to a 16 seed.
I didn't say anything about that.
What? No, Oregon's a 16 seed. What are you talking about?
I thought they were a 2 seed.
Oh, well, bracketology really messed it up, the Oregon one.
And then I have Tennessee because, I think Tennessee's a better team. They're really experienced, and Purdue's a choking program, so I had to go with Tennessee.
Yeah, Rick Barnes has so much success.
Yep. Okay. Let's move on. The Midwest region.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize to Roy Williams for picking Washington. You know, I don't like North Carolina. I really haven't liked them all year. I think they don't play defense sometimes, and that kind of pisses me off. But they're just that good of an offensive team. I really got to start believing them. What? Anyways, I'm going to take North Carolina over Auburn because Bruce Pearl is a choking coach. Oh, where did Bruce Pearl used to coach? Oh yeah, Tennessee. That's right. I'm going to take North Carolina. And I'm going to take Kentucky because I'm not sold on Houston quite yet.
I'm going to take Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn to upset North Carolina, even though I think Auburn chokes. But I think North Carolina would win the national title. But I'm going to take Auburn because why not? And because people will remember if everyone takes North Carolina, no one will remember if Auburn loses. And I'm going to take. I really want to take Houston because I really love Kelvin Sampson. He's one of the best coaches. He's up there with John Wooden. He's up there with John Calipari.
He's up.
Not at John Calipari's level.
He's
That's what I'm going with.
He's up there with Tom Crean.
Okay, let's not disrespect my boy Kelvin Sampson.
Okay, well Tom Crean. Okay.
He's up there with Red Auerbach.
Tommy Heinsohn.
I don't really like Auburn. They played a Kansas team that really didn't have the best guys. And I'm going to take, it's kind of a toss-up. I'll take Kentucky. Is P.J. Washington playing? Do we know?
I have no clue.
If he is playing, then I'm going to take Kentucky. I'll roll with Kentucky.
All right. I really like Auburn, but I'm going to roll with North Carolina. I just think they're more talented.
I'm going to roll with North Carolina because we played them.
That's right. That's another reason Michigan did play them, so I'm rolling North Carolina.
That's why I almost picked Minnesota because we played Minnesota earlier, so I almost picked them to beat us.
Houston and Kentucky, this is the easiest game on here. I'm going with Kentucky in an absolute blowout. If P.J. Washington plays, Kentucky by 40. If P.J. Washington doesn't play, Kentucky by 40.
Are you kidding me? Texas Tech, Michigan's the easiest game on here.
No. Okay. Who is going to the Final Four?
I am.
What teams are going to the Final Four?
Well, I'm going to start with the East region here. I was tempted to switch my pick to Duke after that BS call, or after that BS ending to that UCF game. It just seems like it's their year. They're getting every break. But I'm still going to take Michigan State, for no reason, really. I'm going to take Michigan State. Out of the West, I'm going to take Gonzaga. I think they match up very well with Texas Tech. I think they'll beat them pretty handily. In the South, I've got Virginia beating Purdue. I think that's the game that Carson Edwards goes 7 for 31, and I think Virginia will win by 20-plus points. And this is a pretty difficult decision. I'm going to go with Kentucky because I think it's their turn. I'm going to take Kentucky. So I got Michigan State, Gonzaga, Virginia, and Kentucky.
I'm going to go with Michigan State, Gonzaga, Virginia, and Kentucky as well. I know it's the same as Mike, but that's just who I'm rolling with.
I got Duke, UVA. Chris loves that pick. Definitely going with UVA. Terrible pick.
Did he pick UMBC?
I'm going to go with Michigan, and I'm going to go with North Carolina. I think
fact from when we were on here last time, so I'm just going to stick with it. Michigan State, Michigan, Tennessee, and North Carolina.
Wofford got screwed.
Yes.
Oh, we have breaking news as we speak, Chris. Alabama has hired Nate Oates from Buffalo as their new head coach.
Well, this was breaking news about 6 hours ago.
Breaking news!
Breaking news, John Beeline has been fired from Michigan for as they found child porn on his laptop.
Okay, that's aggressive.
The Onion, my source is The Onion, they tend to get things right. So,
Obviously.
the interim coach will be that defensive coordinator that Beeline hired because he doesn't know how to coach defense.
All right, who beat who in the national championship game?
Michigan State will somehow, miraculously beat Gonzaga. And on the other side, I think Virginia will handle Kentucky pretty easily.
The Virginia and God damn, Virginia and Gonzaga, and Virginia will win.
Yep, I got Virginia over Michigan.
There's no way. This Michigan team is terrible. How do you people have them in the Final Four? They are terrible.
Okay, Michigan State will beat Michigan because we have a mental block against Michigan State. Tennessee will beat North Carolina because they have a lot of experience.
Let me just say something. If Michigan State plays Michigan in the Final Four, I could not watch that game because everything, bragging rights for decades, centuries, would be at stake. I couldn't watch that game. It's ridiculous that game even be played again. I would rather lose in the Elite Eight than even play Michigan in the Final Four. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I want no part of Michigan at all. I know if we beat them for the fourth time, could you imagine that? But if we beat them for the fourth time, Chris would have to quit the podcast. But no, there's just no way. I couldn't take it. Nobody could take it. The whole state of Michigan would go into anarchy. It just can't happen. No way. The refs have to find a way to not let that happen.
Who wins the national championship?
UVA.
Yeah, I'm tempted to go with Virginia. I think but because I picked Michigan State earlier, I'm going to take them to win it.
Luke? What? Who are you picking? For what? The national championship. I said Virginia. Oh. To piss you off. That's terrible. That's an embarrassing pick. I'm taking Tennessee.
Ours are embarrassing.
Oh my God.
Like, how are you going to feel when Rick Barnes beats Tom Izzo in the national championship game?
Oh, that is absolutely ridiculous. That is.
Tom Izzo could stay in the locker room and outcoach Rick Barnes.
No, Rick Barnes will coach of the year himself somehow.
We could have no coach. Cassius Winston could be our coach and we'd outcoach them. You kidding me?
He won the coach of the year.
Jack Hoiberg could be your coach.
Rick Barnes won coach of the year.
He's all. I don't know how he won it. Can you explain to me how he returns everybody? No injuries, nothing, and he gets a 2 seed, and then we're going to crown his ass. Give me a freaking break. There are about 100 coaches, and I really mean this. 100 coaches I would take over him. That is ridiculous. How about give it to Matt Painter? Matt Painter lost over 5,000 points, and how many rebounds? And look at it. He's teams in the Sweet 16. It's ridiculous. And how about Chris Beard losing everybody? It's absolutely absurd. These stupid awards. Cassius Winston not being in the Naismith finalist. It's ridiculous. It pisses me off. Nobody knows college basketball. I want to have a vote. It's ridiculous. It's bullshit. That's what it is.
Eric Musselman should have won the vote. But
My bad. Eric Musselman. I do have Eric Musselman ahead of Rick Barnes. I will say that right now.
I do as well.
Tony Bennett won Coach of the Year last year. The year before that was Mark Few.
Oh!
Mark Few could win it every year.
Nope, he's a choker. So he's just built. That's right, he's a choker. Yeah. All the coaches who win this are chokers. Jay Wright was a choker when he won it. Every third year that goes to a non-choker. Nope, Jay Wright was a choker at the time he won it. John Calipari's a choker. Okay. Greg Marshall won it with Wichita State. He choked. Yeah, he's a choker.
Okay, no, he is not a choker.
Jim Boeheim won it with Syracuse. He's not a choker. He's a murderer. Tony Bennett won it with Washington State. You kidding me? They just handed out to chokers all over the place.
Listen, Greg Marshall is not a choker. He's got his team in the NIT Final Four, which is the real national championship. Well, I mean, we got to give him credit for that.
Mike's favorite coach, Jamie Dixon, won it.
Jamie Dixon, the winningest coach in Big East history. Fun fact of the day, Jamie Dixon. The 7th best coach in the Big 12 is the greatest coach in Big East history. Chris, how do you feel about that?
Listen, no, he's not the greatest coach in Big East
Nope,
history.
he's the winningest coach in Big East history. He's the greatest in Big East history.
Okay, that's like saying Rick Byrd is the greatest coach in whatever
No. Winning percentage.
OVC.
Winning percentage. By winning percentage, Jamie Dixon is the winningest coach in Big East history, and he coached there for like 10 years. So you cannot tell me that he hasn't been there long enough, because he has. And he's the greatest coach in Big East history. And he's the 7th best coach in the Big 12 right now. That just proves the Big East is a terrible basketball conference.
No.
No, explain that to me. Explain that to me right now.
Listen, the Big East is a great conference.
And this was the old Big East. He was coaching against Boeheim and Calhoun and all these great programs. And
Yeah, he was coaching. He was coaching with a murderer. So it's pretty easy to win there.
What?
Jim Boeheim kills people.
And how about this? Jamie Dixon has won 80% of his games against Jim Boeheim. How about that? Just a great coach. Too bad he's the 7th best in the Big 12, which is unfortunate. Right behind Bob Huggins, who.
Talk about chokers, my goodness.
How about West Virginia with their tough loss to Coastal Carolina in the CBI quarterfinals? Tough loss for them.
DePaul is in the semifinals. The Big East is not done yet.
Well, the fact that DePaul is the last team left in the Big East just proves how terrible of a conference the Big East is.
DePaul beat Coastal Carolina. They're going to the CBI title game. You know what they say? Let's go. Guns don't kill people. Jim Boeheim kills people.
And all hail Jamie Dixon, the greatest coach in Big East history.
How do you guys feel that DePaul is on the verge of a title?
How do you feel that I don't give a shit? How do you feel about that?
That'll be one more than Michigan has this decade.
Oh, got him.
They're on their way to a huge title game. I can't wait for this. I'll be tuned in.
What? I don't think a single CBI game has been on television, so...
Well, it's going to be on TV. I can't wait to watch DePaul. DePaul's a really good team. I can't wait to see that.
Are we going to talk... How about we talk about Creighton's collapse against TCU last night?
No, we're talking about the Big East team that's on the...
Talk about Jamie Dixon won the NIT a couple of years ago, and he's going to win it again. He is the greatest NIT coach of all time. Oh, he's also the greatest Big East coach of all time. He should be a Hall of Famer, Jamie Dixon.
Okay.
Oh, he should be. How do you win at Pittsburgh? Nobody wins at Pittsburgh, but Jamie Dixon does.
Big basketball school, come on.
No, Jamie Dixon wins there. That's the only guy who wins there.
All right. Are we good?
Now, let's talk about Michigan's loss to Michigan State for the third time this year. Michigan chokes against Michigan State. Can we talk about that?
Okay. Thank you for joining us. We will be back to preview the Final Four sometime next week. We may see a Michigan State Part 4.
We will be previewing the NIT Final Four in a couple days, so just await that podcast.
Well, actually, we will be back tomorrow night to preview DePaul's big CBI championship game. That'll be the topic of we'll just talk about that for an hour straight. So look forward to that. That's going to do it. Thank you for joining us.